Today, my guest, you may remember from the flock. You remember him from WCW. It is the one, the only Mr. Reese. Ron, how are you, sir?
The Yeti.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I can't complain. I'm thankful that you took the time out to come on today. I appreciate that.
Yes, it's always a good time.
So, going back, what made
Sure.
you even want to pursue professional wrestling? What was it that drew you into it?
Well, when I was younger, I definitely was a fan with all the Hulk Hogan stuff and all the mid '80s and greatness. And then, as I got into high school and college, I just got busy with other sports and stuff like that. Kept an eye on wrestling, but never really followed it as much. And then, I played some college basketball, and then I played some basketball over in Europe, and things did not work out as well as I had thought. And I was fairly athletic, and I was fairly entertaining, so sports entertainment seemed to be a really good combo.
So, how did sports entertainment come into your life as a profession?
So my basketball agent at the time was played in a golf tournament with Big John Stud, and he told him about me, and John was like, hey, I'm thinking about getting back into the business. He wanted to do the Machines Part Two, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't, sort of on paper, that's what it sounded like. It was sort of, just gonna see what was going on with it, and just randomly, I was on the West Coast. I lived in San Jose at the time, and Eric Bischoff was down in L.A. And John got a meeting with him, and I flew down, and Eric was, I mean, not like, hey, I'm going to sign you guys, but if you guys get it together and all this stuff, I'm interested. And pretty much that's all we needed to get going on it. So I moved out to New England, to the Boston area, and started training with Killer Kowalski, and just started going from there. And then as we started going on, John had some health issues, and just never was. At one time, got over the cancer, and then unfortunately, the cancer terrible came back and got him again, and he passed away in March. And then WCW was like, "Hey, that's terrible what happened, but we'd like to bring you in and give you a what is it, like a power plant deal,
Hmm.
which at the time was $500 a week, and you got paid. You were a 1099, so it was $500, almost cash, and that was like, woof, yes, especially when you're like trying to get together. At that time, there was not a lot of wrestling shows. And if you were working the territories, I believe it was just Smoky Mountain and USWA, and they weren't paying much more altogether than $500, and that was with travel during
Hmm.
the week. So, it was pretty crazy, and it was nice. And Atlanta was fairly cheap at the time. This is 1995. Everyone was excited for the Olympics, so it was just a good time and a good place.
But now, was there anything that came easy for you when it got to training in professional wrestling, or was it harder than what you thought?
Being a basketball player, you always stay on your feet. So getting knocked down was always like really sort of awkward for me,
Hmm.
especially like getting knocked down onto my back. So that was a little awkward, but everything else was worked out fairly good. I
And
was,
how?
fairly athletic and could move a little bit, maybe not as great as everyone had thought, but better than most guys my size.
Hmm. And how was the power plant for you?
The power plant was crazy. I mean, I just literally showed up out of the blue like on a Wednesday, and everyone was in town for like a TV taping the night before. And so, I mean, they beat the tar out, just, I mean, without really like bruising you and like battering you and, cutting you up. They just beat the crap out of you, and left you a puddle of goo. And that's how it went, and it was good. But man, you were wore out.
Hmm. Who were
And
the trainers during that time?
it was Dwayne Sarge Bruce, it was Pistol Pez Watley, and Mike Winter, and then Jody Hamilton oversaw everything, and then Brenda Smith was the turner person at the front door that answered the phones and stuff like that. So it was pretty crazy. But at the time, it was funny because everyone knew that wrestling was predetermined, but no one was ever going to admit that at that time. So they would bring you back there and they would just beat the heck out of you, and it just is this fake? Is this fake? And you're like, hey man, I never said it was. you know, I never
Now,
said it was, right? Like just leave me alone, guys.
with you being a big guy, did they lay it in extra hard, you feel?
Oh yeah, and so when I got there, Paul White was there, the giant. He'd been there for
Hmm.
about a month, and he was thinking I was coming in on his territory. Where look, if he thought I was coming in on his territory, he was completely mistaken. I was just waiting to get in the door,
Hmm.
and so. But yeah, they all like beat the heck out of me. And then, funny enough, that first day they started calling me T-Rex because I had like a big head, short arms, and a big ass. And so they called me T-Rex like the dinosaur. And I'm going to tell you, for 10 years in Atlanta, there was people that you could go up to him and say, "Hey, do you know who Ron Reese is?" And they would say, "I've never heard of the guy." But you go, "Hey, do you know who T-Rex is?" And they'd be like, "Oh man, that's one of my best friends. He was, my best man in my wedding. I love the guy." So I had a couple aliases down there.
How long were you in the power plant before you started working matches?
I want to say, so I started in mid-April, and then we did the Yeti in October. So if you count that, and then I want to say almost a year at the power plant before I really like got into the on the road and stuff like that.
And how did the Yeti come to be for you? Like, what were you open to that? Did you think that this is?
At that time, you really can't say no, right? Because you don't want
Hmm.
to be that guy who's like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to do it." And they're like, "What the? Get the hell out of here." Because it was so competitive at that time. There
Hmm.
wasn't the 800 venues or avenues to wrestle that you have now. I was literally like WWE, or then or WCW, and WCW was not really was more of just that NWA sort of coming into WCW. Was not the power player that they were as they got in with the NWO and stuff.
Now, you did the Yeti, and then did you hear anything after that, or they just was just go back to
Yeah,
the
they're pretty
power
much like,
plant?
"Hey man, that was terrible." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I believe the idea with the Yeti was that they wanted Giant Gonzalez to be he was going to be the Yeti,
Hmm.
and so he came up to go do it, and then he had what does he had? He had I just thought of the word now, I can't remember it. What is it when you have insulin and you got diabetes? He
Hmm.
was diabetic, so he went back and had some kind of issue with it, and went back down to Argentina, and they were like, "Hey, we need you down in Florida tomorrow." And I was like, "Wow, okay." And you just get on a plane and go. Orlando at the time was like 45 minutes. I thought it was so great that I was in first class, but by the time you got into first class and got situated and got a drink, you were landing down in Florida.
Hmm.
And it was okay. But
So,
I can't tell you, I can tell you, but I don't know if I'm able to because, people around. I know where the Dungeon of Doom is.
yeah.
It's an actual location down in Florida. There's a couple of side roads you got to take, maybe a pass code to get into this place. And, you go underneath and, stuff like that.
So after you do the Yeti, did they not have any other ideas for you
So
during
I
that
think that
time?
I was supposed to be, they were going to do that pay-per-view. If you remember, it was like a three rings, three
Hmm.
giants thing. And
Hmm.
I was supposed to be Sonny Ono's ninja Asian guy that he was bringing in to be the third guy. And so when that happened, they sort of dropped the whole entire thing. And it was just
Hmm.
like, whatever, this is just such a shit show that let's get out of it.
So
I
how?
mean, you look back at the booking then, and look, I'm not going to take anything away from Yeti. I can't, right? I mean, look,
Hmm.
I own mine, okay? yes, lock, stock. I made amends to everyone that needed to be made amends to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the booking that night, it was like the Big Show and Hogan are like in a tug of war
Mm-hmm.
with monster trucks on top of Cobalt Arena, and then it's like woo, 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 and then the one breaks off, and the Big Show goes into the water, right, and then he comes
Mm-hmm.
out like and that's the best part I think in the whole entire night is he like comes back into the arena and his hair's wet, and it's like what was he in the what and we're not supposed to lose some kind of belief with that, or I
What
mean,
did
just a
you?
little bit of belief.
I
Maybe
know.
there's. But I
Clearly.
think they were sort of booking for like Hogan and the younger
Hmm.
kids at the time, like
Yeah.
maybe
Hmm.
like, hey, WWE is going after the adults. Maybe we should go after the kids or
Hmm.
just make money off the kids because
Did,
there's a lot of money in
oh yeah.
what is it, toys and crap.
Oh yeah. The merchandise. You make a
Yeah,
lot of money. Now, did you pitch anything during all of this? Like, did you have any ideas that you were trying to pitch for who you wanted to be, or you were just
I
learning?
was just so happy to be there. To be honest with
Hmm.
you, like I was just happy to have a job.
Hmm.
I think at that time I had got bumped up to like $700 a week.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's ooh. But then I had to get insurance though because I had money now. I couldn't tell my parents like, no, no, I don't have any money for insurance. They're like, no, no, no. Now you have money for insurance. I was like, oh,
When the idea of the flock came to be, how was that presented to you?
oddly they sat down and talked about it, and then we did that Stuck Mojo video,
Hmm.
and I thought everything was cool. And then they started without me, and then I guess they were like, hey, we're having troubles with I was brought in later sort of as like not I don't want to say the enforcer, but more of like just an outside guy to come in and handle Benoit and DDP, and then eventually they got us. And then I think I was sort of seen as like, hey, we'll have him do some stuff with Goldberg for a little bit.
Hmm.
And then he was running through everyone really quick at that point. So that was after that. Yeah, let's go. And then they came to me and said, hey, we're disbanding the flock. So we're going to have you lose to Perry, and we'll get something to you in 90 days. And I thought that there was the big blow off,
Hmm.
but I lost to Perry. And then 90 days later, they called me up and said, "Hey, we want you to be the bodyguard for the Maestro. No one messes with the Stro." And I was like, okay. And I got a tuxedo with the sleeves cut off. I looked really huge. Had the mullet like just rocking like nobody's business.
Hmm.
And got down there, and they never really did anything with it. And then I think like a month later, the Maestro did his own thing.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Was there any moments for you during your time as, Reese with the flock that stand out more than others for you personally?
Yeah, I think that we did a really good job as a group for us to stay together that long. And you got to remember, we were on TV every show, and
Hmm.
we had to be in the crowd every show. It wasn't like we just came out for like certain stuff. We were out there the whole entire time. So I mean, while it seems like for me, it seems like we were out there a long time. We weren't out really that long, but it was just such a time constraint. We were saturating the market with ourselves pretty quickly there.
Now, was it intimidating for you at all working with the talents that you were working with in the ring at that time? Or was it a good
Uh,
opportunity, really?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. Everyone seemed to be really chill. Everyone was really, involved and wanting to make things better.
Hmm.
We were really competitive getting there with the NWO and that stuff to really go after WWE. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, they had the monitors in the back and they had what they were doing, and everyone knew the time breakdown and knew what your quarter hour was doing and if you were up or down or what was going on. And it
Hmm.
was very competitive.
Did you feel like just being a big man at that time, they were just trying to see what would fit? Like if they just kept changing, like you did. You were talking about the Ninja and Yeti, and then you did Big Ron Stud, and then you did the Meister. Like, were they just trying to? That they just didn't seem to know what to do with a big man at that era.
Well, let's be honest. At that time with WCW, I mean, they were just throwing everything against. It was the NWO, and then
Mm-hmm.
just throw stuff against the wall and see, we'll see what sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the only guy who got out of there was Jericho, and I mean, he came in with his. One thing I have to give him is he came in, he had his own ideas, he had his own deal of this is who I am, this is
Mm-hmm.
who my character is. I'm not going to change this character if you guys, I'm not going to cut my hair just to cut my hair,
Mm-hmm.
and he did his moves and had his stuff, and his matches were laid out in his mind before he got out there. And I certainly think that helps. And when guys ask me now, like, hey, what can I do, getting into the business? It's like, if you go down to the WWE, it's good, but at the same time, they're going to make you who they see you.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if you go down there with an idea and you season yourself a little bit before you get down there, you can come in there with a strong image of who you think you are and see if that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now, being as over as all of you guys were, were you able to pitch anything for the flock at that time, or it was just what they wanted at the time?
You know what? I think that would have been all done by Raven, but yeah, I mean, they came to me and wanted me to do the match with Juventud,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, rumor had it was that Juventud was taking off his mask, and as a reward for taking off his mask, he got to beat me. And I was like, wow, man, you sold out really cheap,
Yeah, oh
man. You
yeah.
sold out really cheap. Should have held out for more.
So how was it working, with WCW? Because you guys were at the height during
Yeah, it was
those
crazy.
wars and stuff. How was it as a professional wrestler during that time period for you?
I tell everyone when we started, and when I started in '95, if you called me up and needed a ticket, I'd be like, hey, man, not only can I get you a ticket, I can get you a row. And if you play your cards right, I might get you a section of tickets. But once that NWO and Bill Goldberg hit, it was like, look, man, you got to have your A game. You're not just,
Mhm.
handing these out at the grocery store. This is like, no Cub Scout tickets here. I mean, this is like, hey, A list celebrities and above, or you're just not giving them out.
Mhm.
I mean, it was sold out. It
Oh
was
yeah.
crazy, and they were like people outside, like, hey, and it's like, whoa.
What was it ever frustrating for you? Just like
I think
switching
it
so
was
much?
for frustrating for everybody because everyone
Mm.
sees themselves as like, the next Hulk Hogan, but reality comes in. So that's the hard part. That's why a lot of guys, go crazy and get all messed up and stuff and can never really get it.
Mhm.
But, it is
It-
what it is, right? Like, hey, there's got to be not everyone could be Michael Jordan. There's got to be the rest of the Bulls on the team. So
Was there ever anything that you would have liked to have done during that time in WCW that maybe you thought would have been good for you, for your character, for who you wanted to be?
a moonsault off the top of the cage.
Okay.
I couldn't do it, but I just, hey, it'd be nice, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe a frog splash.
Yeah, I don't think they'd kick out of it. So how was it going from, they were talking that you did the thing with Saturn and then you were supposed to, be the bodyguard. Were you just happy to be there? Was any of that frustrating that you kept going through all these peaks and valleys, it seemed like, with different
You know,
characters?
I kept going through these peaks and valleys, but everyone was, and I was not making huge money, but I was making enough that I could, get married, have a car, buy a house, do these, go on
Hmm.
vacations and stuff. So it wasn't like, I was poor. And every time that I would sort of raise my hand, like, hey, they go, oh, we got something for you, but let's just give you a little raise. And I was always like, okay, great.
Hmm.
So
Was there ever any interest at all from WWE at this time? Was there
Well,
ever
so
any
I got
fears?
released in January of 2000,
Hmm.
and I called up the WWE, and they were really hot. I mean, they were a lot of interest, very excited. And I, at the time, I heard the rumor that they wanted me to be the bodyguard for Christian and Edge.
Hmm.
And then I turned on Monday night, and they had Tomko in there, and I was like, wow. And then I called the next day, and my phone call didn't get returned, and it was just like, okay. And then they offered me a deal to go train up in Ohio Valley for like 500 a week. And at
Hmm.
that time, my wife and I wanted to have kids, and I was 30, 31, and it was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna get a job.
Hmm.
And I was working for Dusty at the time, Dusty Rhodes at Turnbuckle, and he was like, "Baby, not everyone's meant to be a wrestler." And I'm like, okay, Which now I hear everyone like coming in there and telling these great stories about how they were about ready to quit. And Dusty's like, no, you got to stay. And Dusty's like, no, you need to quit. And I'm like, hey, thanks a lot. But it worked out, right?
Oh yeah. So how was it? You said that you thought that they had something for you, and then you were working for Dusty. Did you work anywhere else in between all of that?
No. Well, I mean, I was doing independence at the time. It was, a little hard because everyone was unemployed looking for positions at that time.
Hmm.
But I was wrestling with Dusty, and it was great. I mean, we were doing shows all around Georgia. I want to say we started out doing two a week, then we got to three a week, but then we did one a week, and then it just, it sort of fell around. But I'm gonna tell you, I think one of my claim to fame is I pinned Dusty Rhodes. No, I tapped him out in the bear hug,
Hmm.
and then I beat Hashimoto in Japan all within a calendar week. So I got to think that somebody's got to top that for me because I think that's pretty strong.
Oh yeah. Did you ever you went overseas at all?
So when I was with WCW, I went over to Japan for,
Hmm.
I was over there for, as a young boy for like 6 months or so.
Hmm.
And oddly enough, I met my wife like the night before we went on our first date, like the night before I went to Japan. And then I was like, so I was over there for 6 months, and it was good. And I came back, and we got back together. But it was just like, real. I was like, "Hey, remember me?" She's like, "Where'd you go?" I'm like, "Hey, far away." I didn't go to prison, but almost, right? Like,
How was Japan and the
I liked
wrestling
it a
scene
lot. It
there?
was good. At that time, it was a lot like I guess like AEW is now, where they had the buses and they tour. You
Hmm.
did more of like a team, where WCW and WWE were more individual.
Hmm.
Like they have a heel bus, a babyface bus, and hill hotel and a hill, and then you bring all your stuff down and they wash it all for you, and you have dinners together and all that stuff. So it was and it was coming from a basketball background where that was the or the norm was pretty cool.
And then, so I gotta ask, like with OVW, did they have any plan when they offered you the developmental deal to go down there, or was it just, hey, come
Not
down
at
here,
all.
train?
Yeah, I think it was just like, hey man, and I was like, if I felt if I was not married and
Yeah.
yes, but it's just and you look, I have a college degree. I went to Santa Clara University,
Hmm.
graduated in 4 years. I think think it's a pretty good degree. The opportunities were out there. I just had to find them.
Hmm.
But it's really weird. So when I started interviewing, like in the corporate world, everyone would like, hey, you're great, great, and then they would see my resume that I wrestled, and then they found out it was a professional wrestling, and these guys all like expected me to be like, listen here, brother, and I'm like, to be honest with you, that's a part of the wrestling, but
Hmm.
being a professional wrestler back then, I mean, you had to have business acumen, you had to book your own hotels, you had to get a rental car,
Hmm.
you had to do all. I mean, it was a full time
Yeah.
job, and you had to have tools that no one had coming out of college.
Hmm.
And so maybe there, I didn't wear the fanny pack and I didn't have the mullet, and I didn't like, get mad at a business meeting and hit a guy with a chair or like, let's take this outside, or stuff like that. But I think in the back of the mind, everyone thought that I was gonna, sell a
Mhm.
deal and like do the strut or, whoop,
You know, OVW at that time and developmental at that time, I think you made a good decision by not going there,
yeah.
honestly. I think
Yeah, because they
by
didn't
the,
really run a lot of shows, right?
yeah, and then like, but you also wouldn't have been a WWE guy. You wouldn't have been,
Yeah,
I think at that time, like you would, by the time you would have gotten settled with your wife and all
yeah,
that, they would have been like, we don't have nothing for you. Cause like at that point in time, cause I'm like 45 minutes north of OVW. So I grew up around
okay,
that developmental
yeah.
territory. And it just seemed like that was a lot that happened to a lot of people at that time.
I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is so great," and then
Yeah.
like a year after, they were like, "Yeah, that wasn't that great." Looking back, they were like, yeah, and I was
Mhm.
just from jump like, "Hey, it's just not really working," and I'm fine.
So after, you did Dusty's stuff, then
Which was a lot of fun. It's just
yeah.
talk about timing and stuff like that. If we
Yeah.
would have had the internet and the ability to
Hmm.
get the matches out, I think that and this is no knock on Dusty, but I think that just not knowing how the business was changing and it was changing daily,
Hmm.
it was just very difficult. He was putting a lot of money into promotions, like, guys going out and papering towns and stuff, and it just wasn't there that way anymore. And every time we would run a show, we would do really in these towns. We put some money into it, have a really good shows. We charged like $8 to get in, and then 2 weeks later, someone would come in and do a show for like $2, and it was just terrible wrestling. And so they would just kill the towns, and we never could
Hmm.
really get them back.
Was it easy or was it a hard decision to walk away from professional wrestling?
Well, you know how it is. You never really officially
Yeah.
walk away. I mean, no one ever really. But it was tough. But then once I got into like business and stuff like that, it was like a full time
Hmm.
Monday through Friday. To be honest with you, I was so busy and overwhelmed that first year that it was hard to like do wrestling at that time. But uh, every once in a while, and I was very not not just like, hey, I'm not going to do any wrestling, but it was very selective. And
Hmm.
I was making not great money, but good money. So it was like, hey, I'm not going to come wrestle for $20. I
Yeah.
need something. And it, always was like, hey, this guy, I think there was that one wrestling, the religious wrestling or church wrestling
Hmm.
that was, I went and did. I mean, that was like, hey, this guy was supposed to come and he can't make it. It's Tuesday. We need you Saturday. And I was like, hey, yeah, I can totally do that, but I just need this. And they were like, oh, let me get back to you. And I was like, okay. And they were like, I think we can do it. And I'm like, yeah, I know you guys can do it because you're not paying anybody else. But yeah, like, hey,
So how was it transitioning into a workforce that wasn't professional wrestling after all those years?
so a lot of people, it was like that whole athletic thing of like
Hmm.
from basketball, and basketball was not as violent as football or football or as wrestling was, but in that world, it's sort of like, hey, if you got a beef, you just sort of go up to the dude like, hey, what the f's going on, and if you got a problem, let's just solve it. In the work in the work world, you really can't just, hey, man, I'll be outside, catch me outside, but
It's frowned
it's
upon.
yeah, I'll never forget, like, I was filling out like a form and it was like, have you ever punched a fellow employee? I'm like, well, I mean, if I have to be truthful, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
have. You ever hit somebody with a chair? Yes. Have you ever been
Yeah.
barred from a workplace? Well, yeah. I mean, I've been told like, hey, we're fining you $8 million, even though we pay you, $20 a show. I'm fining you $1,000. Where's that coming from?
When did you start? Because you said you were you chose if you were doing some select dates. When did you start dipping your toes back into professional wrestling world there?
Just people would call me just randomly, yeah, like doing some stuff locally in the Georgia area.
Hmm.
I had a chance to do the TNA, but it just, it was very at the beginning there, and I wasn't really sure where it was going to go.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody really knew where that was. It was sort of weird with like hey, we're going to do the pay-per-view, and
Hmm.
nothing was really guaranteed. And at the time, I was like, man, I don't want to jeopardize this for that. And to be honest with you, I mean, it was not like I was like Chris Canyon and those guys were like wrestling was my life. And
Hmm.
yeah, I couldn't, I didn't wake up in the morning and eat my Cheerios watching WWE,
Hmm.
reruns and stuff. So, by the way, this is Bo. He wants to, or this is Finn. He wants to say hello. Finn, turn around. He's very shy today, but yes.
So, are you open to doing more conventions and stuff? I know that you
Yeah, I
just
had a
did
great
one.
time. Yeah, they're great.
How was the last one you just did? You did a little flock reunion.
The flock reunion was really good. I was amazed to see how many people. I listened to what is it, the Busted Open
Yeah.
on, and they're talking about how the wrestling business is tough times and all this stuff. There was 10,000 people at that WrestleCade, and they
Hmm.
all had money. No
Hmm.
one was walking around with their hands in their pocket with like, hey, can you take my EBT card?
Yeah.
They were like, hey, and I was like amazed at how much they were charging for art or signatures or stuff like that. These guys were like, I want 10. It was like, damn, all right.
Where can people reach out to you at to see if you're interested in doing an appearance?
Yeah. So I have my email address is Ron Reese, Reis, is 72 at gmail.com. Keep it pretty simple.
Nothing more simple than that. If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
I would have to tell you, I would, first of all, really consider it.
Hmm.
Do you want to do it like as a full-time position and as a career, or is it just like, hey, I want to go do some shows on weekends and hang out,
Hmm.
and then go from there. But yeah, go for it. It's a lot of fun. Some of my best friends still to this day are from wrestling. Some of my best times were back in wrestling, and it's a good career and it's a lot of fun. It's a
Ron,
great
I
way
just,
to dispel belief and do
oh
things,
yeah, it's a way to be a big kid even into your,
Yeah,
as your adult years there.
yeah. You can. It's like you're living your own superhero movie.
Hmm.
So, how did you get into wrestling?
So I grew up around the developmental territories that were always
Right.
like that was
So, like
professional
Indiana
wrestling.
and
Yep. I was around Southern Indiana. Rip Rogers is from here. If you're familiar with Rip, he
I am.
trained.
Yes.
He trained with OVW, and then so like they would always run shows here. So
Right.
that's how I got drawn into it. And then being around, like that developmental phase of seeing people before they were ever on TV, before pre NXT, like it
Right.
just that always drew me into like wanting to know more and like learning more about wrestling and how it works. And
Right.
it's crazy to, like doing these interviews on what could have been with so many different people, like
Right.
what the original plans were, and then like that just always hooked me and made me want to learn more.
Right. That is crazy, and I think it's really crazy how WWE went from like maybe that old school like break them in and beat them
Hmm.
up sort of old school kayfabe stuff to
Yeah.
now like this whole school that's like mass producing stars as we speak.
Hmm.
And
Oh yeah, everybody's got a shot these days.
will be everyone like gives it a hard time like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just mass producing, but that's they need people,
Yeah.
and there's so much uh, time out there that they need wrestlers.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that was part of the problem with WCW was they had 3 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Thursday, 3 hours over the weekend of stuff, and just
Hmm.
not enough wrestlers to fill the voids, right? Of interesting wrestling. Oh, they had enough wrestlers, but just not enough interesting wrestling, right?
Yep.
To make you want to tune in.
They like zeroed in on what they were focusing on, and then everybody else was just background players. It seemed
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it always seemed like they started out with a hot start of the the Mexican wrestlers flip flopping and flying like, oh my God. And then it shot to the back as like somebody was like getting beat up in the back as they were coming in, right? Like, oh my, what is going on? Pandemonium is in the back, and oh, who's getting out of the limo and get beat up, And then,
Oh yeah.
oh, well, I guess if you think that's tough, I'll see you tonight in the main event. Oh, okay, well now we have our main event. And then they would go into like a girls' match,
Hmm.
and then it would be like a Jericho match, right?
Hmm.
And then it would be like, all right, the flock comes out and we get involved. And then it was DDP. And then we would get into the main event stuff. And then it was like Goldberg would come down and jackhammer everybody. And we were done. That was Monday night. We'll see you
Oh
on
yeah.
Thursday.
Ron, I just want to say thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling
No
and what you
problem.
continue to do. I would love to meet you in person sometime. I do
Yeah.
these conventions. It'd be nice, you know.
Oh, please. Yeah. You
Yeah,
got my number.
absolutely. And I'd love to sit down again and talk a little more about professional wrestling if you'd be open to it.
Do it live at a convention.
Okay, that'd work
I'll
for
tell you
me.
power plant stories.
That'd be
I
my
got
bread
some
and butter.
good power plant stories.
Oh yeah, let's do that. I'd love
All
to
right,
do
good.
that.
All right, great, man. Thank you
In the
so
me-
much.
in the meantime, if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
I will.